Welcome back to another Triathlon Podcast brought to you by Mauna Apparel. As always, we're going to dive into some of the results from the weekend with the T100 in London. Had some epic racing on the women's side and a wicked comeback on the men's, and we will dive into all of that. And then stay tuned. We also have an interview with Race Ranger to hear all about what's going on with the release of data, what we had at Challenge Rock, and kind of what their goals are in the future. And are we going to see it in age group racing? We dive into all of it with James at the end of this episode, so stick around afterwards. But until then, I am joined by Josh, and let's catch up and see what's going on in your world. I see the Super Tri hoodie there. You've been a little bit busy with some travel with them.
Little travel up to Toronto, so I don't think we needed it in Toronto with the heat wave up there, but yeah, picked up a nice little hoodie when I was in Toronto for our first pro race of the year, and also a massive age group event that we acquired and ran for the first time. So yeah, that was a really awesome trip up to Toronto and being part of that, and now in the midst of getting ready for the next big one, Chicago, which is like one of the biggest age group triathlons in the world, next weekend. So a week and a half away. And I'll be out in Chicago next Wednesday through Monday and doing a lot of partnership stuff and a lot of prepping for another awesome pro race on Saturday, and should have a good lineup of athletes. We won't have Alex, but we will have many of the others. And yeah, looking forward to it. It's been an awesome journey being part of that team, and just getting more and more involved with triathlon is the win there.
Yeah, definitely. And that was a really fun event. I went there last year and checked it out, and it was very cool seeing the course.
That's right. You got the itch after I was at Boston, and you hopped in and went right to Chicago the following weekend. So yeah, we'll have, I'll be there again, seeing what I can do on the ground. There's also going to be Blake from On Your Left is going to be there helping cover the race as well. So some extra publicity for Super Tri and the sport in general, because we all know these short course athletes are really where most of us get our start and those Olympic dreams come from.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about you? How's the training going these days?
It's going. I have some really good days, and then I'll have one bad day, and then be like, and mentality wise, it's like, nope, I've been here before, and now I've gotten a little bit more experience through some builds and getting to a marathon or a big 70.3 and understanding that those days are going to happen. And I had one of those this past weekend. I had a long run that was 8 miles of tiring my legs at kind of an aerobic pace, and got through that pretty well. Nice little progression. And then it was 7 miles at goal pace. And unfortunately, when I woke up, I saw the T100 London was on, and I was like, oh man, the women's race is going to be good. And next thing I was like, oh, can't leave after the bike, can't leave after the run. Nah. So I started my run a little later than I normally would have, and didn't get through it as successfully as I wanted to. Still had a pretty good run and still got through the whole 15 miles, and looked at like what I was doing on that similar run last year, and it was like a minute and a half per mile slower. And it was like, that was a bad weekend last year, and I still ran a BQ at Chicago. So perspective was right there in front of my face, and my own little Strava memories helped me back up. And today I had my next big speed workout and did a progression all the way down to VO2 max type mile pace. So it was, and crushed it and hit that really well, and right back on feeling good and staying healthy, swimming 3 times a week and biking once or twice. So miles are going up to about 17 this weekend, and we're just over 50 miles this week, and looking to run in the kilometer world 4:14, 4:15 in Chicago, and 6:40, 6:45, somewhere in that pace, wherever that equates to. So yeah, that'll get me that sub 3 that we're targeting, and I'm running some pretty good intervals in those paces right now, and the heart rate's not going crazy. So got some work to do, but I am feeling good about where I'm at right now compared to where I was last year and where I was in Boston, and just fitness in general, thanks to triathlon.
Yeah, that steady progression, you're absolutely crushing it. And it does definitely get tougher too when you start to get more of that life stress in your world. For a while, you had that time where you could just train and focus on entirely that. But Super Tri's definitely got you busy, and that makes sometimes some of those workouts you're going in a little bit more mentally fatigued, I'm sure.
A little bit, and I'm already starting to figure out how I'm going to figure out a long run during this Chicago trip because it's early mornings already with when you're at triathlon race events. We all know that. So I'll figure out a way to get 18, 19, 20 miles in, whatever it may be that weekend. Some way or another. Maybe it'll be a Thursday night run or a Friday night run or something like that. So we'll adjust and do what I need to, but yeah, just trying to get the rest too. The
That's the
rest and the eating and the calories, just keeping a good track of everything and making sure I'm recovered. And one of the things my coach has asked me to do with this block, with the amount of volume that we're putting in is trying to get the workouts done earlier
Mhm.
and really ideally having everything finished by 6 o'clock, by 5 o'clock, whatever. So if I can, up early before work, getting works done. And then really the latest workouts I do are the swims because I have to get to the pool, and usually that's after work. And right now the run's the priority. So like if I have a run, well, I just ran 16 days in a row too. So I'm going to be on a 21-day run streak at the end of
Nice.
this week. So
Yeah.
like a low days 3 to 4 miles somewhere in there. So but we're getting it in and the body's responding. So instead of 2 a days, we're just kind of doing every day. And yeah, if I have a run, which I've had most days, that's priority number one, get that done first, and then get to the pool at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night and swim if I need to. So yeah, the swimming's been really helpful, and got a couple open water swims when I was in New York last week, which was really nice. And very few on the bike. And it's like, man, if I wanted to hop into a triathlon right now, I don't know how good I'd do on the bike, but um, I've been looking at maybe a December 70.3. I don't know. There's an Indian Wells and there's a 70.3 Florida. We'll see.
Fair enough.
I want
Yeah,
to keep that AWA status up. That's why I like those age group points. Like they look good right now for the first time in my career. So it's like one more race at the end of the year, you know?
you'd be in there. Yeah, and I think that's something that people don't realize or haven't clicked into is the later you train at night, that actually can have a significant impact on your sleep. So cortisol levels rise, body temperature rises, and that makes it harder for your body to kind of calm down and get into that REM sleep to really get the quality you need. So you might be tired after a hard workout at night, you might fall asleep easier, but oftentimes your heart rate's going to be elevated, cortisol's elevated. You're not getting that same recovery time compared to getting workouts done earlier in the day. Have you noticed kind of an effect on your recovery or how you feel the next day?
It's interesting. I think there's a number of factors, like you said, that go into it with like now a lot more work stress and things there. It certainly has allowed me to have more energy throughout the day and not have to rally to get a workout done. I know that, and I definitely feel good early in the morning, whereas opposed to like after a night workout at 11 o'clock at night or whatever, and going to bed at 1:30 and getting up at 8. Like I would just be tired and then having to like grab some caffeine and get going again. But those days are less and less. I think for me, it was more about their circadian rhythm and like making sure everything was the same. So even if I was going to bed late or working out late, I was still getting the recovery I needed sleep wise. But like you said, it's still not good because there's not enough time for the body to calm down before you go to sleep. So it's definitely going to help, and it is. And I'm just changing that whole circadian rhythm a couple hours earlier and getting to bed earlier, and that's another bigger factor that we're trying to do. Obviously, with I'm not going to lose time on my work sleep. Like my sleep numbers are going up because I am prioritizing getting to bed earlier. Um, so I definitely think it's a huge factor in this block, especially with the number of hours of running that I'm doing. Training hours are down. So in the triathlon world, I was 15 to 20 hours a week, and now I'm like a 10-hour week's a long, big week.
A lot more training stress when you're doing mostly running compared
When
to
you're running, yeah.
training. Yeah.
So I'm not worried about the Strava score going like this, or the Training Peak score not going up anymore because I just don't have that volume, and a lot of that stuff's based on that. I just know where I'm at fitness wise and heart rate wise, and I get on and I'm running paces that I could like run below threshold, and now it's like, okay, you're actually not pushing hard enough. And this is now your slow pace. I actually dropped a little 20-something-year-old on our long run on Saturday too. So that also made me feel good, who had just been at altitude in Park City for a while. And came down. He's like, all right, maybe I did too many slow, long runs and I'm not ready for the speed that you just put on me. So that felt pretty good too.
Always fun when you get to drop people in training.
Yeah. Especially a runner who's pretty fit himself. So
Fair enough.
yeah. No, it's been a good block, and I'm excited for it. And yeah, I'm just really entrenched with everything. And I tell my athletes too, and other people that I talk to, I think we're all lucky to be able to do all this stuff, but you got to keep it all relative and in perspective and where you're at. And I think that from where I've come from, I've made a lot of strides, and not everyone is going to have that ability if they've been doing this for a long time. Like we're now getting to like seconds. I'm
Last.
not taking minutes off of PRs and things like that, and we're all going to have ups and downs. So just keeping all that in perspective has been a big mental shift in my side as well.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're on a good path and getting ready to crush your next marathon here. Be great to
I
see
am, but
progress.
I'm not training as many hours as you are right now because that's you're in the different world. Like I'm getting out of the triathlon world for the year, and you're going into the dregs of all of the high volume training.
Yeah, training had been a little bit up and down the last little while, ironically, with some triathlon training travel. Some triathlon racing and training caused me to do less triathlon training. Funny how that works in there. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, getting into a good groove now. Got 8 weeks I just saw until Kona, which is crazy that it's coming up so fast. And summer's always a little bit more hectic and a little tougher to train, but getting into a good groove again and getting in some decent miles. And
What's the
actually,
actual date on Kona? Is it like the first weekend in October?
I want to say the 11th, but I'm not entirely sure.
Okay, so it's the same weekend as Chicago. That's yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So slightly different location.
Yeah. I hope Chicago's not as hot as Kona. I will not be running sub 3 if Chicago's as hot as Kona.
Oh man, that reminds me. So, I'm starting to get into some of the heat work again. If you guys remember kind of earlier in this year when I was getting ready for Taiwan in the Canadian winter, I was doing tons of like overdress training in the basement pain cave and just ridiculous amounts of sweat, and kind of moved away from it the last little while, just trying to sharpen up and stuff. And I had my first session back again, overdressed in the pain cave to simulate kind of what Watts had put out with that heat stress, because Kona, there'll be heat stress. And oh, you lose that quickly. That was painful. The whole workout, all I was thinking was, I'm hot. I'm hot. I'm hot.
Yeah.
Like, it just, oh, I mean, I know it'll come back because made some like massive strides in some of the power I was putting out. With like this time, I just had a short sleeve jersey and a long sleeve jersey. I was putting out higher power with that, and then like a fleece over top kind of thing when I really got into heat training. So gonna be getting back into that to get some of that back. Not only the heat adaptation, but it's shown a lot of benefits that are pretty similar to altitude at the same time too, just with red blood cell creation and just being able to shuttle oxygen more efficiently to your working muscles. So increasing blood plasma volume, all that fun stuff, which will definitely help when it comes to trying to race in the heat of Kona again.
It's
Yeah.
so true. Because I mean, if you remember, that was that kick in the butt that I got in January when I went to Puerto Rico for 5 days.
Yeah.
And it was just like all of a sudden I like started shedding weight and being healthier and able to train more. And that was all heat training. It's very similar to the altitude training these days.
Yeah, it absolutely makes a difference in there. So I'll get back in that. But I am stoked because I have been spoiled this summer for like Mauna meetups and stuff between the Boulder camp and then we all raised a Maine, but I'm headed to the Mauna Elite Camp on Thursday, so in a couple days here. So stoked. We have, if you don't know, we've got our age group team that everyone is welcome to. And actually, applications are going to be opening up in just over 2 weeks for next year's team. So you're hearing it here first. Get ready for that. We've got some pretty incredible sponsor discounts, and we're going to be doing a massive triathlon giveaway to celebrate the team opening up again. So go check out Mauna Apparel on Instagram, and you'll be in the know for when that happens. But we've also got the elite team that kind of selects people who are regularly on the Ironman podiums and stuff. And we're going to be doing a camp this weekend down in San Diego. Apparently, there's a big kind of training complex down there. So we'll all be staying in the training complex, and thankfully it's all inclusive. So all the food we could need at any time, which is one of the biggest things. If you're looking at doing big training camps with a lot of
Yeah.
volume, access to food without having to cook is like one of the biggest determiners of success during that. So
That
pretty
could be the
stoked for it.
biggest part of the bill if you didn't have it covered.
Seriously. We got in trouble at our Airbnb at the Boulder camp. So we had 9 of us in this Airbnb, and it said like up to 12 people and stuff, but it's 9 of us training solidly. It was all the coaches and kind of organizers and stuff, right? So the amount of food we went through was absolutely insane, but that also means the amount of garbage that we went through from like the wrappers from all of our nutrition and all the everything there. Yeah, the Airbnb host was not happy about the amount of trash afterwards. Like, this, you must have had a party or something. It's like, no, we just eat a lot
Yeah.
when we're training like this.
I felt bad in Oregon when I left 24 empty water bottles. It's like in the recycle bin in my room, but there were 24 that I went through in one 5-day period. Thank
The
God for
sparkling water can.
Walmart delivery.
That's what we had, all of the sparkling water cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a lot of fun when you do have that access to food, and then just a bunch of athletes who are out there crushing it and want to get in some solid training. It's going to be a lot of fun to go over there, and then, yeah, just have some fun geeking out on triathlon again and putting in some solid miles without the kind of distractions of day-to-day life, which is always good, which means doing a lot now to try to get ready to not do a lot other than swim, bike, run, eat.
Yeah, it sounds like you might be on your trainer and treadmill a little bit earlier than you were hoping to, based on the storm you ran through this weekend.
We have had like the wettest summer, and so I've been hailed on 4 times this summer, which is
Nuts.
an insane amount. Like, usually where I am in Calgary, it's known for like 300 days of sunshine. It's not wet like ever, but we've been getting the worst storms and rain. I went, like you mentioned, I went on a run the other day, and it was supposed to be really working on hills. So more the eccentric part of hills, trying to run fast downhill and just get some resiliency in the legs. And of course, when I head out, it's sunshine. There's no rain in the forecast or anything. 15 minutes in, it starts raining. So I like stop under a tree and stuff. I'm like, okay, I might run back to grab like a rain jacket just to stay a little bit warmer, start running towards my house. It starts hailing with little hail, and then it stops. And then we get into these like giant hail, like the size of a quarter by the end
Yeah.
of it, which thankfully I went
Painful hell.
farther, but I was feeling bruised and battered after that. The last like mile home is when the hail just got bigger and harder. I was just like, this is absolutely insane. Yeah, hailed for like 40 minutes, and then back to sunshine. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. All day. And right when I head out for this is when Mother Nature just decides to unleash the hail. So yeah,
Yeah.
finish that one on the treadmill.
I wanted to get outside today, but we're in the midst of a heat wave, and I was like, I did not get up early enough this morning before meetings and everything. And right now, this week's like crazy busy with Chicago, and I was like, you know what? I'd rather get it done earlier. So I took my lunch hour and hopped on the treadmill and was done in 50 minutes. So I was like, as opposed to driving 15, 20 minutes to the track, stretching, warming up, and like that's a 2-hour round trip for a 50-minute workout.
Yeah. No, it
So
makes a difference. Sometimes you just need to get it done. Well, let's jump in. There was some wicked racing going on this weekend. It was really fun to watch, even though it meant you had to do your long run a little bit later and deal with some more heat. The women's race was
here
definitely
for the women's race.
to watch. You did not want to miss out on that one. So, do you want to give us an idea of what happened over in the women's race at T100 in London?
Yeah, no surprise. We had the usuals on the swim with Lucy Charles-Barclay with the fastest swim of the day, and wetsuit swim as well. And the water miraculously passed all the tests that it needed to pass for World Triathlon, and everyone was able to swim. But yeah, Lucy Charles-Barclay with the early lead in a decent pack, not too far off of her, which she's starting to get used to having people on her feet now.
Yeah.
And I think what it's done is now she's gotten healthier for a good stretch of time as she's really been putting in some work on the bike and her run. And that certainly came to show in London because she was caught on the bike And your normal Jessica Learmonth and Kate Waugh and Julie Duran were kind of up there, and it actually took Taylor Knibb a while to catch up. She had another one of her standard Taylor Knibb transitions where she like walked up the stairs that everyone else ran up and out of the
Put her
swim,
socks
and she
on
just like
and get ready to
took
go.
her time, and I think she's starting to realize she might have to work on her transitions because these ladies aren't getting easy to catch on the bike anymore. And especially if like Jessica Lamont gets her run fixed a little bit and adds a few more paces, like if she enhances her run at all, like she's a big threat in this distance, and because she's definitely up there with the bikers. But we all forgot how good Lucy Charles is when she's healthy. And she was caught on the bike. She took turns with Taylor up front. There were three of them for a while, and then it was Taylor and Lucy. And Lucy actually put in a surge late in the bike to come into T2 in the lead. And okay, well, you still got Kate Waugh and Taylor Knibb that probably will run her down based on what we've seen in the last year or so. Since Lucy had to back out of DNF this race last year, and then DNS at Nice were kind of like that was kind of the end of her season last year. Since then, she's had some pretty good performances. So I think we got to start believing in Lucy heading into Kona this year after this race, because she was passed by Taylor Knibb and Kate Waugh on the run and had moved to third for a little bit, and then Taylor started to drop, so she moved back into second, and Kate Waugh was looking like she was going to run away with it, but then all of a sudden it got to like 45 seconds, 40 seconds out, and it didn't go any further than that. And slowly but surely, Lucy started to pull her back in, and really neat to see a really good race close to the end. Like most of these T100 races have been decided pretty early on in the run, and this one you couldn't leave. Like is Kate going to turn it back on, because we know she's capable of it. And Lucy caught her with a little bit to go and just kept going, and Kate didn't have that next button to hit. And Lucy Charles with her first PTO T100 distance win ever, and coming off a DNF last year at T100 London, this was a huge comeback for her, important race for her, and I think we all know this was just a piece of her training towards Kona and defending her title there on the island. Even though she had to miss World Champs last year, we all know how important Kona is to all of these athletes, and especially the ladies having their last go as a solo effort this year. So awesome day for Lucy. I also was impressed by Kate Waugh again, because I mean,
Yeah.
no one expected anything when we got to Singapore, and all of a sudden she took that one, and she's been right there in all the races that she's been a part of, and able to hold on and race with some of the best athletes in the world. And it'll be interesting to see Taylor Knibb and how the rest of her season goes, because third place on the run and getting dropped and not being able to pull away on the bike, it's like, okay, well, this is a different course. A lot of these people lost nutrition early. Like Jess Learmonth lost bottles right away. Georgia Taylor Brown lost bottles right away. Like even like I think it was like her entire cage fell off. It looked like
Sheared right off. Yeah.
the bottles were still in it. And it was like, oh man, and we know how much we put in at that long of a ride. You've got 2 or 3 bottles with a ton of carbs and a ton of sodium on a hot day like that, and to lose that within the first 5-10K of a bike ride is going to impact the rest of your day. And then unfortunately for GTB, it was a nasty flat tire that got her late in the race as well. So she didn't really have a chance, and was still able to pull into the top rankings there. But Ash Gentle, another lackluster performance. Again, kind of middle of the pack, top 10 performance for her, but nothing, never a threat. Julie Duran was really never a threat, even though she was kind of running through the field. That top 3 was really decided early on, but we had a race, and that was really neat to see.
Yeah, I think that's the first time that we've actually seen in the women's race, like 3 women battling it out head to head on the run, right? Like you mentioned.
They were literally neck to neck. I mean, they're right next to each other.
It was so good to actually see that and just see how much this level has risen. So last year, we're almost like these T100 races are getting boring because Taylor Knibb will go off the front. She'll win by 5-6 minutes and no one actually competes with her. And it's definitely shown how the level can rise when someone is a standout like that. And we're seeing that come through now. And especially with Kate Woff, like I think a lot of people kind of wondered, was Singapore a one-off because the heat conditions were so insane, and she is wicked in the heat. I've seen her race in Thailand a few times and stuff, and she's showing no, she's just that good at this distance.
This is definitely a good distance for her. She's one of the ones that isn't bouncing back and forth with other
Yeah.
leagues as well. She's pretty
So that,
locked in on the T100, right? It's a big check bonus when you finally get paid at the end of the year, that she's going after. And I think she's pretty locked in on that, and currently sits in second place behind Julie Duran, and she's only got 3 races to account for too. So I think Julie's got 4. Kind of a lackluster performance by Julie Duran, but at the same time, you got to remember she's coming off an Ironman and getting her spot to Kona as well. So how dialed in was she? Probably not so much. It was sad to see Holly Lawrence have to DNF at this one, but she had a tough day. There were a lot of tough days. Megan McDonald got kicked on the swim. Like, I mean, she DNF coming out of the swim. I saw her out, and I was like, did something happen on the bike again? Like, and they were all joking around about her rolling her ankle on the tape before. But no, she got kicked hard enough to dislocate her shoulder in the swim.
insane. That just like, that is a nightmare situation, being in the water, dislocated shoulder. Apparently she like popped it back in, like calls for someone to pick her up. Like
But
brutal.
it was they lived up to the hype. It was a great race on the female side. I was definitely found myself more interested in seeing what was going on in the female race, because I kind of figured if Hayden Wilde had a good swim, that race was over. And sure enough, as I left to go do my run, Hayden Wilde had come out of the water and had a pretty good swim. Now, here's my one gripe, and I know some other podcasts have covered it, but not as much as I would like to, because I felt like they really dropped the ball. And we all talk about how awesome the coverage is of the T100, but I felt like they really dropped the ball in the split screen capabilities when the women's race was ending, and you had no clue what was happening on the most exciting part of the men's race, which is the beginning of the bike and people
Yeah. And everyone's
jockeying for positions, and
everything. Yeah.
we had no clue. Like, how far back is Sam Long? Is he, like, how far back is Hayden Wilde? Is he making room? Like, that's a huge part of the race, and you have the capabilities of showing both.
Yeah,
And
I think they haven't quite figured that timing out right either, because we had in Vancouver, we missed some moves on the men's side during the run, during like the
yeah,
final closing
yeah,
laps.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And we're watching, the women on the bike kind of thing. So they haven't quite figured out that timing, and they tried the men first last time, I believe, the women first this time. They just need to figure out that timing so that the exciting parts of one race should be during like the middle of the bike for the other race kind of deal. Not when these big moves are happening, or when,
Right.
like you said at the beginning, when they're coming out of the water, jockeying for positions. We want to know where people are, because we definitely miss some things in both situations there.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
the 2 separate races is almost too much, because by the time you get to the back half of the second race, whether it's men's or women's, the commentators are tired, the age groupers have kind of tuned out. So I do think it is good to run the
The
races
overlapping.
concurrently.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just have to figure out that timing so that you have, because you have a good idea where the exciting parts are in a triathlon, right? Unless you have like some crazy change ups in the middle. This was a bit of an anomaly because we actually had lots going on during the run with 3 women out there, but even still, like,
You have to be ready for that, though. Like, you want to have a run battle at the end of either race, whichever one is first. So you have to plan for that. And it's almost like they're so used to Taylor Knibb running away with it, or somebody running away with it.
just,
Other than San Francisco last year, there really hasn't been a like to the wire type race. And I guess we had a little bit of one in Dubai last year with the men, but they're just not used to it. So it's almost like, have they not planned for it? But you
yeah,
have to be. And you know that timing wise, the women are going to end as the guys are starting their bike. Like that, like no matter what, if it's a good race or not, there's still 2 different races going on in impactful moments. And I think they just have to figure that out.
yeah, it was good to see they had like the quad box and we were getting some split screens and stuff. That's definitely a move forward. And I will say, I like their commentary team. Like, you have the knowledge of Jan and Vicky and stuff, and then you kind of have the everyday guy. I can't remember his name on there, but he's not into triathlon, the geekiness of it, but he's asking the questions that people who are newer to the sport would be interested in. But not to the point where you're like, oh my God, they're going over this again. I think they found a good balance there, or some insight, and then just different perspectives, even from the pro side too, with Jan being annoyed that these pros kind of chat with each other and have a coffee, and Biggie being on the other side of that spectrum. It's definitely entertaining to see some of the back and forth there.
Yeah, it's things have changed in the few years since Jan has left the sport. It's like amazing how different and how accessible it is for these pros. I mean, how much opportunity they have, and we talked about this before we went on air. It's just like it is a prime time to be a professional athlete, and I think there's tiers of professional athletes. There's the T100, we all know that, top 20-ish, and then you have those same type of level athletes in the Ironman world, but then in Ironman world, you're also dealing with 70 other guys that are pros
Yeah,
lining up. So it's hard for Ironman to go and do what T100 does in terms of athlete benefits and things like that, because you can't give it to 80 people on the start line.
yeah, and I think
Um,
it's totally different because back in like Jan's days and stuff, and really on the Ironman racing as a whole, there's no situation where you're all traveling around in the same hotel. Like T100 and Super Tri, all the athletes are in the same hotel. They're going for the same breakfast. And so it would be hard not to kind of create some of those connections when you're traveling around together and all together all the time, compared to Jan and his days in the Ironman racing. You maybe see them once a year in Kona, and outside of that, you're all off doing your own thing, and you're probably not staying at those same hotels.
Homestays, Airbnbs, whatever it may be.
Totally. Yeah. Whole different setup.
Roadside motels back in the day.
Definitely some crazy stories with some of the racing over in like the 90s and stuff. But um, yeah, I think it'd be hard to keep that distance in that kind of situation, like the T100.
I agree. So yeah, and we started to talk about the swim on the men's side. The regulars again led this one out with Rico right there up front at the top of the swim, and we all kind of figured, where is Menno, and like who's going to push it? Are Menno and Rico and Leo Berger going to push? I think Leo ended up leading the swim out of the water. And we all hope and condolences. I mean, I hope that Leo gets through the health scare that he's going through right now.
Yeah, if people haven't heard, do you want to let them know kind of what's going on with him? Because people got some or gave him some flack about not having a great performance until I think a lot of us found out afterwards what was going on.
Yeah, so it sounds like Leo's found some issues that he's been dealing with on a benign tumor. I'm not positive exactly. I don't know if you have a little bit more information than I do, but it sounds like he's got a little bit of a health scare that he's dealing with, and he's racing through, and could have easily said, no, I'm not racing, and just kind of gone off and gotten fully healthy again, and gone through all the treatments he needs to go through. But
Yeah, I think it was on his sciatic. I heard his sciatic nerve. I haven't confirmed in there, but yeah, just causing lots of injury issues over the years when you don't know that you have something like that, putting pressure on that nerve and wondering why you're kind of losing strength or feeling pain there. So it definitely, God, can't imagine that time between finding you have a tumor and then finding out if it's benign or not. Trying to prep for a race in that time would be brutal, but at least now he knows what the issue is. At some point, he'll likely have to take some downtime to have it taken care of there. But man, that's got to be tough to race with, and kudos just for getting through the race with that.
yeah, I agree. And he still does what he does, and goes hard when he's on a start line. And right from the gun, I mean, there's so many good swimmers in this field now. So you figure somebody like a Hayden Wilde, coming back from a broken scapula and multiple ribs and all that, who hasn't swam a lot, was going to struggle to hold on to this type of a elite swim field. And you had the Jamie Riddles of the world in this race too, who unfortunately had to DNF as well. And sounds like he had a pretty bad day and doesn't know what happened. But Menno had a great swim. Rico had a great swim. And there's Hayden less than a minute down out of the water. And you're like, okay, well, we know he's been biking and running. This is probably going to be a good race for him. But Sam Long was down and never really worked his way back through again. And wetsuit swim, and it's just like, it's getting hard to watch, yet he still runs himself up to 10th, 11th, 12th, wherever he ended up finishing 9th, I guess.
Plus side, he was only just under 2 minutes down, which we've seen some
Yeah.
much bigger
So he's
guys.
not making the room up on the bike like he had in the past.
I think that's the biggest difference.
And that's the thing. Like, and that's where you watch like that beginning of that bike that I talk about on the TV coverage. Like, you start to watch that Sam Long watch needs to be on. Like, we don't need that anymore, though. Like, every race he's been in down out of the water, he's actually usually losing time on the bike. And whereas before it was like he would get it within a minute or two by T2, and then he would run himself up to the podium. Now he's actually losing time on the bike, and he's not coming in with the top bike splits. And I think it was Leo with the top swim, Rico with the top bike just around 2 hours, and then Yella had the top run. And by the way, Lucy Charles-Barclay had the fastest run split of the day too.
I don't think anyone have ever called that. Like, it's incredible and scary for Kona.
Fastest swim, fastest run. But yeah, and not unexpected to see Yella have, and Yella was moving, but Yella did not have the bike that he expected to have. Hayden just kind of rode right through the field. And came up on Rico, got into T2 first, and Hayden caught him pretty quickly and was just gone. And there was no chance. And Rico kind of kept dropping. Mika Newt again right there. And solid race, swim, bike, and run. And to come into second and a field like that, and like I still feel like nobody's talking about Mika Newt. Like,
no, they really aren't.
And that's 3 good races in a row.
Yeah. Like, he's not the winner. He's not in the front the whole time, but he's just consistently showing up and getting
He's
up.
the Kyle Smith from last year.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. He's just always right there. And then he comes up to that finish line, hair flowing, and just like
see-through suit, whatever else. I did good again.
Suit choices. Hair is on point.
Yep. Always. No Martin Van Riel, and there's actually some new news on Martin at this race. Kyle Smith, DNF. So some stuff going on there with Kyle that he's got to get figured out. Martin Van Riel just announced shortly before we came on to do this podcast that he had rolled his ankle a few weeks ago and hasn't run in almost 4 weeks. So he's been swimming and biking and trying to get that out. He was saying he was having some mental health issues and then rolled his ankle. So it was like, so it's been like 6-7 weeks that he's been kind of down. Makes you wonder how good he can get before Nice. And then obviously 70.3 Worlds is going to be a question mark for an athlete like Martin, like with Qatar and the rest of the T100 series right around the same time as 70.3 Worlds. So do we see a Hayden Wilde at 70.3 Worlds, or do we see a Hayden Wilde skipping 70.3 Worlds for something like the T100? So there's going to be some decisions made in that middle distance World Championship / T100 end of season.
Right.
Christian Blumenfeld, does he get a wild card invitation to T100 and skip 70.3 Worlds, or does he want to go for both titles?
Well, he turned down their contract, so as of right now, he's person non grata with that.
Yeah, that is true, but I think we all know the T100 would bend some rules for that man to come.
I don't even know. They've been so hardline on that rule.
Yeah.
That's been one thing that does not seem to have flip-flopped at all. Kind of, if you guys don't know, they essentially said either you sign up with the contract with T100.
If you were in the top 10 and offered a contract, right?
If you were offered a contract, either you sign it or you're not going to be invited to any of the events in 2025, which I think, to me, that seems like a misstep because there are some of those big names that we would love to see there, like the Christian Blumenfelds or the Kat Matthews, or people who did well in the series before, that there's no chance of them showing up. And instead, we're getting some wild cards of people who, quite honestly, we've never heard of and they won't feature in the race whatsoever. Like, it'd be so much cooler to have like a Kat Matthews in London kind of thing. Like, how cool would that be? And see her go head to head with Lucy. And yeah, I think that's a bit of a misstep. So I can't see that happening with Blumenfeld, but that means we get to see him at 70.3 Worlds.
70.3 Worlds. It's we are in championship season, so you'll start to hear a lot of us, a lot of talk about it, and all
fast.
Yeah,
God.
It is. So this weekend we have the last qualifications for Nice and Kona, right? And it's also a carryover week. It's also the first week of Ironman age group races for 2026. So we're going to see the new roll down at
Patient.
an Ironman for the first time, which is going to be men and women in the same
Everyone's
slot
competing.
allocation time, the new time slot. So this weekend we've got Kalmar and Copenhagen. So the men at one and the women at the other. So it'll be an interesting weekend in the pro field. Chelsea Zadar has to get around and validate for Kona. So
And there's only one slot on offer for the women there. So that's going to be a tight race. But a few women have already qualified
yeah,
for Kona. So that helps a bit. Should roll down a little bit at least.
yeah, I think it'll be an interesting race. Again, we've said it about Chelsea before. She seems like she's healthy and ready to go, but she's had a good 70.3 race this year, but she really hasn't done much at the full distance. So we'll see how she gets around. It'd be nice to have another name in the factor for Kona who's been there and knows how to do it.
Yeah, we're looking at that. Like we could have some big names at the front with now Lucy Charles-Barclay coming back in storming form with T100, which doesn't sound like that was her goal race whatsoever. It's just one step along the way to Kona. So that is scary with her outrunning everyone. And then we know we'll have Laura Phillip and Kat Matthews dialed in, ready to go to take it on. And if we can add Chelsea Sodaro ready and fit and ready to fire, that could be some absolutely epic racing on the Big Island.
And you get somebody like Julie Duran, like who had a really
No,
good Ironman distance. Like, okay, so she didn't show at T100 London, but if she's focused on Kona and shocking the world, like Chelsea did a few years ago, okay.
for sure. And we've seen it happen before with like Chrissy Wellington rocking up and no one knows who she is. We definitely know who Duran is at this point, but
Yes.
we don't know what she can do at that distance. Then we're going to have Taylor Knibb too. Like, and that's, of course, I think London, that was fairly technical with the turns and stuff. And we know she's been working on bike handling skills and stuff, but Kona is not technical. It is head down, bum up, just go hard in a straight line, which we know she absolutely excels at. So she'll have more than enough time to put the socks on in T1 and
Yeah.
make up some time on the
Well,
bike.
and I think we had a little bit of a hint from Pat Lemieux on based on his location in their episode this week after London, he was out in Silverstone. And
Yes,
so
so
Taylor's at the wind tunnel getting aero testing for Kona.
what I'm saying is that she's never done aero testing before now.
I mean,
That
she
is
used to ride on a road bike, so I mean,
like, man. So she's in a position that feels good and looks good, right? But who knows? If they find a few watts here and there with the aero testing, like, watch out.
yeah, that's scary. And it's interesting because her bike has not been as a differential, like it hasn't been a differentiator like it has been recently. So in the past, that was where we knew would she be able to hold on the run, and now the bike isn't getting her to where she needs to be. But I think the main focus has been Kona again. Like these ladies are all locked in on Kona. They all like Sam Long made a ton of money on T100 this year. He literally stole money from them. Like he's just showing up and
Picking up the numbers.
yeah, picking up the numbers and hoping to have a good day at Nice and he'll go back into Ironman next year would be my guess. But we'll see. They got another baby on the way, so maybe he needs to take another contract.
Yeah, definitely.
He's got
Well,
to get into the top 10 though. I think right now he's only in 12th.
that's the thing. Will he even make it there? I don't know. I can't see. It seems like it was a good challenge to kind of push himself to try to get faster at this, but it has not been successful. And you got to think at some point he's going to be making better money between sponsor bonuses and prize money and stuff going to the Ironman.
Winning 570.3s every year.
Totally. Yeah, that's exactly it. And just that's got to be tough on the head and the ego, like going into these things, being used to showing up to a 70.3 and being in the running for the win to again, trying to maybe make it into the top 10, being miles behind everyone.
Being the fan favorite laughing stock that everyone's cheering for to hope you get to the top 10 or 5.
Yeah, that's a hard position to be in.
Yeah.
But like you said, we are heading into championship series racing this next little while with a whole lot of it going on this year. We are not going to be short of triathlon entertainment. And there's definitely some big names coming up and going to make it for some interesting racing. But for now, I think we'll call it a day, but stay tuned. We are going to pop in the interview with Race Ranger here to hear all about their plans going forward. And Will we see something like an age group competitive field that has Race Ranger, and what their plans are for the future? Until then, thanks so much, Josh, for joining me.
Have a good one, guys.
As mentioned, this week we have James on to talk to us about Race Ranger. They have been in the news nonstop in the triathlon world, with the most recent release from Challenge Raw actually sending out some of the athlete data. So we're going to get his thoughts on that and get a little bit of a view of where Race Ranger is going in the future. But first, let's say hi. James, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. How are you doing?
Thanks, Jenna. Great to be here. Yeah, doing really good, thanks. And yeah, good to catch up again.
Yeah, and whereabouts in the world are we finding you right now?
I'm pulled over on the side of the road, somewhere between Christchurch and Wanaka in New Zealand. The Canterbury Plains, it's called, very flat part of the world with some mountains in the distance. Yep.
Fair enough. Well, we wanted to have just a chat around kind of what's going on with Race Ranger and where you kind of see it going in the future. But why don't you tell us first? I realized I don't really know kind of how it all started, where did this idea stem from that has become, yeah, definitely the most recent talking point within triathlon.
Yeah, good question. So going back a pretty long way now, I was a sort of a ITU level triathlete, pro triathlete, racing for New Zealand, trying to go to the Olympics and represent New Zealand, that sort of thing. Got fairly close, got to sort of around 30th in the world average. It was sort of where I'd be, and my best result was like 15th in a World Series race, Madrid, in the era of the Brownlees, Gomez, and Frodeno. So sort of one of
A
the
little bit of
making up the numbers, shall we say, amongst the superheroes of our time. But yeah, finished up that in 2012, and was sort of figuring out what I was going to do with my life. And yeah, I actually spent some time, seriously thinking about what I would do. And I'd actually met Felix from Roth, who you had on the other week, at a race, one of their races, when they were just starting to expand the Challenge Family Series. And I met Felix at this race, and I was like, oh man, this guy's awesome. I've got to try and work for him. This will be great. I can combine my love for triathlon and knowledge of the sport with my other sort of what I'd done at uni was international business and sort of operating in different markets and going places. So I thought, oh, I can help him. Maybe I can create a job for myself, helping him find new locations for races and negotiating how to set those up. I thought this was a great idea. So I did a bunch of research of sort of the size of the sport, and went through pages and pages of Ironman results and made a nice big spreadsheet of how the sport was growing and how many people were doing it. That eventually didn't actually come to anything with Challenge. Tried there, but I at the same time I ended up getting a job at my sponsor, Specialized. At the time Specialized, who I then worked for about 11 years in the end. But in the background, I had this idea of, hey, wow, there's quite a big sport here, and there's a lot of people doing triathlon, more than I'd probably seen as a pro athlete, what I was exposed to. And at the same time, my co-founder, Dylan McNeese, good friend of mine, we were sort of bouncing ideas of each other. And he was doing non-drafting racing in the US when the Olympic distance thing was still a thing, and just getting into long distance. And just kept complaining about how annoying this drafting thing was. And obviously I knew what drafting was from being a junior and racing non-draft races at that point. And I did a few, after I realized I wasn't going to make it to London Games, I did a season of long distance, middle distance racing and that sort of thing. And I was experiencing the same problems. And we just sort of decided, like, look, someone's going to attack this with technology at some point. Let's have a go. We know triathlon pretty well, and we have a pretty good understanding of the problem. We're not engineers at all, so we're going to figure out a lot of things out and get a lot of help along the way. But that's where it sort of started. That was back in 2013, but we didn't really find a solution for quite a long time, and we didn't. It wasn't something we dived into full time straight away until really it was about 2017 when we came across technology that looked like it would solve the core problem potentially, and then took it to some clever engineers, and the rest is sort of how we got to here. It's a long time ago now, eight years ago, but yeah, it's been a good journey.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And we've heard a lot of talk of Race Ranger and hear the name coming up, but I don't know if all age groupers can understand exactly how it works or what it does. Can you give us kind of a quick rundown of what devices are stuck where and how it actually judges some of that distance?
Yeah, so right now, what you'll see on the pros bikes is two devices on their bike, one on the front fork, on the side of the fork, and one on the back of their bike, just like a bike light, where you normally put your race number. And how it works is basically it measures the distance between the bikes out in the course, and gives you as an athlete a visual guide as to how close you are to the rider directly in front of you. So it's only looking at one rider. So if there are two riders in front of you, the closest one is the one whose lights that relate to you. And it basically gives you two warning zones. So two lights that are a solid color that don't flash. There's 3 meters of orange and 2 meters of blue. So 5 meters of like a buffer zone that, hey, you're getting close. If you back out of that, it turns off, and that's all no problem. If you go forward from the blue, it goes to a flashing red light. And you will have seen a bit of this going on TV. And that basically means you're in the draft zone. And if you're following the rules, you must now complete a pass. So move forward and complete a pass. And that's basically what it is right now. And the officials out on course now have a way to, see those lights as well. And they can, they don't have to guess. No one's guessing. Previously, we had an athlete would be riding along and guessing what that distance was. They might think they're safe. Referee comes along, makes a guess themselves as well, and then they potentially, people get penalties. No one agrees with the penalties, and no one really knows what the distance actually is. And it's quite hard to judge when, we've seen how hard it is to get motorbikes up and around riders consistently to view this kind of thing. And it's all dynamic and moving, and there's lots going on all the time. So we're basically trying to give an objective way to cut out the guessing. Objective, subjective. Enough sleep, one of those two, whichever one. Cut out the judgment, and it's just pretty black and white, or in this case red and blue, which what's going on. And that's the very first step of what it does, and that's all it does right now. But we can probably get into it. But we're adding a whole lot of things on top of that now, which are going to make it really cool.
Yeah, and it's interesting because kind of these draft zones, from what I understand of the lore, is it started with 12 meters in Kona because they had those reflective markers on the highway were 12 meters apart. So that's how athletes could kind of tell how far, whether they're in the draft zone or not. You take that away on courses around the world, and that gets pretty hard to judge, especially as you start getting low on carbohydrates as you're going. It's easy to go a little bit closer to the bikes in front of you if you're trying to catch a draft. So it's nice to be able to see something that is so much, there's less room for error there. You either have the light, the color that it needs to be. If it goes in the red, you pass, or you're basically cheating according to the rules right now. Now, it had to be cool to kind of see this coming into some of the big races. So we've seen it at T100 now. We've got it at the Ironman Pro Series. It was just at Challenge Roth. I wanted to get your thoughts. What was going through your head through some of the early days with the T100 races with Race Ranger when we were seeing a lot of red lights and no penalties coming from it?
Yeah, I guess I don't want to comment too much on whether it was there was a lot of drafting going on or not, but I think it was frustrating that the perception was that it wasn't being policed that well, and that's sort of always at the moment is our bit of a weakness in that we still rely on the referees. We're only as good as a referee what they're where they're able to get on the course to see things. If they can't see the lights right now, there's no consequences for going into the red. And if people are going into the red and the referee sees it and they're not calling it, then that also kind of calls the whole system into question a little bit as well. So I would love to see, obviously, it'd be great to have a universal draft distance that all the events can kind of agree around. I don't think that should be too hard, really, to come to a number. And then, some firm guidelines and rules around how that should be policed. So is it going to be that as soon as you go into the red, whatever the circumstances, you must go forward? Or is it going to be, hey, and if we can see a reason, a vague reason why, we'll probably let you off, and then you go to another race and they're policing it the other way. We don't want that. We want some consistency around the way it's been policed. It wasn't. It was great to see it all working for me. Really, like at that point, we were still ironing out some bugs last year, and we'd go from race to race, sort of crossing the fingers that everything was going to work perfectly, and just getting feedback from the athletes after the race, and that was super helpful. There were times when people said, "Hey, it was great," but then there was this one time it did this thing, and that allowed us to sort of drill into what they were seeing, because we're obviously recording data on them, but we can't get out to see every single light the whole time and tell if it did handle an overtake correctly, that sort of thing. So last year was pretty frantic from race to race, just making sure that everything was good. And then, if we found a bug, it was sort of like, oh shit, we got to fix it by next week. And then similar thing the next week. But by the second half of the season, we were sort of more under control. And definitely this season, it's been a lot smoother sailing. Remember last year we had three races. Eventually we couldn't complete. We had Oceanside at the start of the year, where basically that was our first race. We tried to use a new set of hardware and couldn't get it to work in time, so had to pull out of that one. San Francisco, we had a shipping problem. The gear didn't get there in time and couldn't deliver there. And then London, actually the one that's on this weekend, there was a clash with the local 5G network with the channel that we were using on our radios, which we hadn't encountered before. So we haven't had any of those touch wood so far this year. We've had 100% success at races in terms of getting it out there and completing. So yeah, it's been a bit more quieter this year, and I've been able to stay back in New Zealand a lot more and be close to the engineering of all the new things. That's why I'm in the car, because I'm sort of driving in between where I live and where the engineers work. So yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, so it sounds like for all the races before, obviously Race Ranger was always recording the data, but that's something that we never got to see or really got into any insight afterwards. And it was really cool this year to see Challenge Roth kind of making the call in the athlete briefing right before the race. Like we were talking with Felix about, Sam Laidlow just said, well, why don't we put this out here? Like, I want to know what's going on in there. So for the first time, Race Ranger and Challenge Roth released all of that drafting data. Definitely had some interesting insights. But what was your first thought when kind of they came to you and said, we're going to put all this information out? Because obviously there had to be some thought about how the information was relayed and released. Yeah.
Yeah.
What were your first thoughts?
Well, the first thing was, I just said I'm having a nice quiet time at home in New Zealand, and I've got other people working for me at these races. When I woke up on a Saturday morning here in New Zealand to 5 missed calls from Felix and about 6 or 7 WhatsApp messages, I was like, oh shit, what has happened? I've got to sort some drama out here. But yeah, basically, he said we had a quick chat. This is before the race, after the briefing. He says, "Do you think we can do this?" I said, "Yeah, if you want to, it's up to you. It's your data, it's your race. If as long as you're happy that no one's going to get too upset about it, and you've got approval from the athletes to do it, then yeah, I don't see why not. We can definitely filter things out if they need to, and yeah, it's eventually what we did. So we can produce that report fairly quickly. Reality is actually we can do it while the run is happening at most races, but we took some time with this one. So basically, we just sent a pretty raw. Spit out an Excel of what you've seen in that Roth report, but I'm just sending that basically to the organisers pretty quickly after the race. Sometimes it takes a couple of days depending on how quickly we get all the units back, but yeah, it can be pretty fast. And I got that ready, I guess, the week after, and they have obviously a lot of pack down after the race, and then they have the entries for the following year open, so that's a big focus for them. And then we sort of dealt with it after that and made sure it was all done correctly. So took our time to present it in a way that we thought people would be able to digest. And yeah, I think the response has been pretty cool. To be honest, our whole this hasn't been on our roadmap at all to release the data, and we didn't. I mean, it's great that it's come out and it's been a great talking point, but our focus is pretty firmly on getting all the units connected to the internet, so that this drafting data that you're seeing now in this report is actually being fed to the referees live in the race. So it's not just something that we can all sit around and have that's interesting looking into the data afterwards. We might still have that, but actually making it useful so that the referees can use it in the race and they don't have to actually see those lights. They can be out of eyesight of what's going on, but they can then have this data and then, okay, let's see, such and such an athlete has been in the red zone for 2 minutes of illegal time in the last 10 minutes. They're now positioned 400 meters up the road from us. Let's go and have a look at what's going on and probably just give that athlete a penalty, that sort of situation. So I think that'll be a lot more effective in actually cutting down the drafting, because the athletes won't know when that referee is watching them. Could be at any time. You might show up as one of the worst offenders and you might be within range of them going and seeing you. So that's what we're really focused on. So this data announcement it wasn't really on our big scheme and plan, but it's cool to show off what we are able to gather and the kind of things that will, instead of just one summary report, will soon be, once a second positioning information, creating a model of the whole race and who's drafting at what times and where everyone is on the course, which is going to be pretty cool.
That is really cool, especially because, a lot of these athletes, they've been in these long distance races, and sometimes it's easy to tell if a moto is coming up on you, and there could be that
I don't know why they
reaction.
don't use electric ones, but yeah.
There we go. There, that's what we need. So that's very cool that there could be a situation where the refs will actually get this data real time and start to see who kind of the worst offenders are, so that they can keep a closer eye on them and see. Because we definitely saw from those numbers there were a few athletes that spent a lot of time in zones that they shouldn't be, and the refs in some cases they were farther back in the field, so the refs just weren't around there. They were closer to the front of the race.
Yeah,
Um, have you
just add to
talked with
that.
any of
Yeah.
these race organizers about doing like something like that? Like, are they open to having that real time
Oh yeah,
refereeing and
absolutely.
data, like
Yeah, like
off the data?
once we get
Yeah.
that going, it's every race that we operate at will have that. I've just bought 8 tablets that we are taking to Europe next month for some testing at races, which will be mounted on the back of motorbike drivers for the officials to
Oh,
use.
very
So
cool.
um,
Yeah.
it's coming. Like this is not like a cool pipe dream that'll, oh, that's a nice idea. One day
Yeah.
we'll do it. I mean, we have been talking about it for a while, but it's literally coming pretty quick. So
It works
yeah,
now. That is very cool. That would be neat to see, just to be able to have that offsite and just give a little bit more insight into what's going on into the race too for the refs, so that they know who to kind of watch out for. And with this too, I hear there's a few more capabilities coming down the line that could be make it a lot more useful for something like age group racing. I've heard rumors of like GPS tracking, and this is something that could be used to kind of replace the, well, not replace, but enhance the Ironman tracker, so that we actually know where athletes are in the field of play.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, big topic there. So obviously we just talked about adding an internet connection from each unit. So we've got a SIM card in each unit, and we'll have a demo of that this month now, August, coming up, where we'll do a race with the units on and be able to, see all the moving dots through the course and get a whole lot of data about each athlete. And then we'll add to that some of the drafting information and start feeding that to the referees. But yeah, with that whole connection, it opens up a lot of possibilities to go to bigger scale of age group, really. And yeah, the first obvious thing is every unit can become a live tracker, which can give better, more frequent updates to the spectator app, which is a big thing, I think. A lot of people get into the sport by supporting someone else and following someone on that tracker for most of the day, often, and then they get the bug, and that's how they come into the sport. And if we improve that experience, and you make it a lot more engaging, that's only going to be good for that pipeline of people coming in.
Yeah.
So that's something that we see being pretty valuable very soon. And yeah, I guess onto the whole age group topic and how the heck's that going to work? You say race ranger for age groupers, and people, their eyes kind of glaze over, and they're like, "Ah, yeah, cool story. You're gonna have you seen the packs out there? And yeah, like definitely, like this is something that we've been focused on since way back 2014, and thinking it through. How will it actually work? And so the way I see it working is, obviously you can't have these big packs with everyone lighting up like a Christmas tree, flashing red. It's just, what's the point? It's not really adding anything to the situation. So how we see it working is, having athletes. You have a spectrum of athletes out there, and it's people like yourself who it's a big part of your life, and you're very competitive. You if you could have been a professional, you probably would have been at some point if you started early enough, or that kind of thing, right? You take it that seriously,
Sounds about
and
right.
it's who you identify as, and you know you are trying to get coins to go to world champs and slots, and you want a fair race, and you want to compete, and you want to be policed properly. You're probably the people who talk about, maybe we should do drug testing for age groupers, that sort of thing. And it probably pisses you off when you get in one of these races and you are swallowed up into a pack, or you see a pack going the other direction with your competitors in it, and
Yeah, that's those
you don't
swimmers.
really
I used
know.
to pass the
Yeah,
other way.
yeah, you probably don't really know who the people you're racing against are, because you're just sort of all one big rolling mixed up group. And we think that you probably would love to race in the way that the pros race currently, a bit more spaced out, and the people in front of you are ahead of you, and the people behind you are behind you, and you're trying to beat them to the finish line.
Yeah.
And whether that means that we need to go back to like a gun start and then start a rolling start to separate sort of competitive athletes from more general participant type athletes. I don't really know the answer to that, but I think definitely there could be a category for these competitive athletes
separated from the general participation group. And that general group, I don't have a great name for it yet, but the rest, I think general participation, or we still call them athletes, because it's definitely an athletic act to finish an Ironman, right, or a 70.3. But they're not they're not like you. They're not sort of it's their life yet. They are maybe trying it for the first time. They are maybe ticking off a fitness goal they've had for a long time. They might not intend to keep doing it afterwards, but hopefully we can give them such a great experience that they keep coming back and stay in the sport. But they're really there to achieve something, to have fun, and to a big part is just to stay safe. We want these people to get around cleanly and safely. And they might not even know what drafting is until they hear about it at the briefing. And it's not something that's a big focus for them. And the other thing we see is they're not always being policed that heavily. Sometimes you get bunches being pulled over into the penalty tent, but a lot of the time, from what I hear and from what I've seen, is a referee will pull up on a group and they'll say, "Hey guys, just stay safe, okay? Just keep your distance and be careful out here." They don't want a big pile up out there. No one wants that. That's the first thing we don't want, right? So I think clearly there's sort of two groups here, and we're not catering that well to either of them. The competitive group want that competitive race. The general participant athlete, they don't really want the hardcore policing side of the sport. They just want to have a fun and safe day. And it can be a bit of a barrier to these people as well. It's quite intimidating when you rock up in transition. It's all dark. You've never done anything like this before. There are people like you with chiseled bodies and expensive bikes walking around, disc wheels whizzing, and you're not. Yeah, it's like, what have I got myself into here? And that can be quite a challenge to people. So if we can cater to both groups in some way, that'd be great. I think that begs the question of how do you split these groups up? Because you're never going to have a situation where there's one day for one group and the next day for the next group. They're always going to mix on the course, right? So that's a reality. And so for us, how we see this working with Race Ranger is we will have 2 units for the competitive athletes. So a front one and a rear one, just like the pros currently do. And that'll basically work very similar to how it works in the pros. And then in the rest of the field, they will have just a rear unit, because these athletes will inevitably mix with the competitive athletes on course. You've got people like, say, my mum, 70 plus, racing with a 25-year-old guy. My mum might be really competitive going for that slot, but she's probably going to get overtaken by this young, fit guy. So when the young guy overtakes my mum, she will see some lights on the back of his bike. If she re-overtakes him, he won't see any lights. So basically, unless you've got a front unit, you won't be seeing any lights. So the bulk of the field, the general participant group that are riding in these large rolling groups, so we call them kindly, there won't be any lights there at all. It'll just be giving them the benefit of improved tracking. And for the other part to it is the event now knows where every athlete is on the course, on the most dangerous section, I guess, the bike. So they can get notification if someone leaves the course, if they have a crash, that kind of thing. If they've gone off a cliff and they didn't, at the moment, they didn't show up from checkpoint 4 to checkpoint 5. I wonder where they've gone. Maybe they've gone back to the hotel. Maybe they've just stopped on the side of the road. Maybe they've had a crash. But now we'll know, hey, Dad's actually down that hill there. He's 5 meters off the road. Please, and the event will know that straight away. So it adds a whole lot of possibilities to the race experience in terms of how we manage races. And I think, it caters to everyone in terms of a bit more about what they want on the race day. That's the general gist of it. I think we have to obviously work out the ins and outs of that. And the other part that we're sort of not sure on yet is what would the percentage be between people who consider themselves a competitive athlete versus someone who's more a general participant. What are some other things that you could maybe do differently if you did have this sort of separation in category? Do you have a dedicated briefing to the competitive group and a more fun and safety focused briefing to the other group? Do you put the racks of the competitive group next to the pro racks so they feel a bit more, this is where I sit, I'm a bit closer to the pilot on the plane, in business class. I don't know, there's a whole lot of options you could do there. I'm not going to tell the events how to do that part, but we have the capability to run it either way. Whether you stick with the rolling start and everyone's mixed up, we'd still have this possibility of lights on for one group, not for the other. I just think having a gun start would be great for people like yourself. I'm not sure
be keen to hear what you think. But you probably want to stand on that start line and get the nerves, because you know that these ladies you're standing next to are the ones that you need to beat to the finish line. And you're going to have a fair race, and there's going to be people targeting, there's going to be officials out there watching this specific group, and you're not going to have to worry so much about being as mixed up in the other groups. And I think it has some legs, and I'd be keen to hear what everyone thinks. But that's sort of how we see it working. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be really neat. And we already have kind of an idea similar to that. Like sometimes there'll be wetsuits or swims where wetsuit is optional. And the people who want to do wetsuit optional, who are out just to participate, they start at the back after everyone else is gone. So that splits it up a little bit. But I think this could definitely bring it to that next level where we have a little bit cleaner racing, to be fair. Like for me, that sounds amazing. I'd love to see something like Race Ranger for the more competitive athletes. And maybe it's user separated in there. It's like, okay, maybe I pay a little bit extra to be in this competitive field, to be with Race Ranger. I would be absolutely happy with that, just to get a little, one more space around you, because sometimes that can get a little hectic with athletes who don't quite know what they're doing, or just separate it out a little bit and do something like wave starts again, like just having different age groups or men going off and women going off in these like pack starts, because unless you have someone on course right now, if you don't have anyone there with you, you're at a disadvantage because you don't actually know where you are versus your competitors. It's like, great, there's an out and back. I can see there are 5 women ahead of me. I don't know if they started 10 minutes behind me, in front of me, where I am in there. So something that makes it a little bit easier to have the race starts go back to, kind of a competitive race start where we all start together. I'm definitely all for. And one thing we talked about with Scott Drew, the Ironman CEO there, was just about making racing more fair and things around doping and drafting and all of that. And this just seems like it's another tool in that fight for fairness within the age group racing, along with something like doping, where we are making the races more fair. Because like you said, some of us put so much of our life into this training and racing and getting out there. And it just sucks seeing some draft packs out there when you know that they're, it's 30% less energy for them to be behind a wheel in front, and something, I hate to say, kind of shaming people into it. But I think if people see a red light constantly in front of them, it might give them pause or just a second thought to it. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for the questions you asked Scott a couple of weeks ago. It was very, very good to hear him say those things. And I think how they're moving with this competitive, what do we call it? The reorganization of how they're giving out slots to World Championships, the qualification process. That aligns really well with what we're proposing here. Is probably a good evolution of that. Is making sure that the people who deserve to go and be at that World Championship are the ones who deserve to be there, and finding that in the most fair way. And that's, as he said, that's a really important thing for the sport as a whole, to show that it's a fair process. We're very hardest on this, obviously, with the pros, and there's strict drug testing, and obviously race rangers in use there, and things are policed as well as they can be. But if we're not doing that for that next tier, people get disillusioned, and they do drop out of the sport if they can't see the next step. For the competitive minded ones, other people that they just want to tick one off every year, and that's fine. But the really hardcore people in the sport keep coming back to you, like yourself. Seeing those packs out there and not knowing if your competitor's in the middle of one and they're going to steam past you on the run just by virtue of what start wave you've gone off in. It's not ideal when everyone knows it's happening. It's just I think it can be done better.
Yeah, definitely. I know myself personally, there are certain races that I'll just never do because it's too easy or too common to see those draft packs all together. It's like, as a poor swimmer, knowing that there'll be packs ahead of me kind of working together, it's just like, well, that takes all the fun out of it, right? Because it should be me racing the competitors in my age group and field, or the other women out there, not me racing against the guys who are pulling along the other athletes. So having something that makes it easier to really, one, make sure you're in the legal zone, take the guesswork out of it, give the referees more options to be able to see whether people are drafting or not. But on top of that all, it's just cool to be able to know where your athletes are on course. Like as a coach myself, this weekend at Ironman Ottawa, I had like 5 athletes racing. And at one point they all went blank and it showed they did not start. I'm like, okay, what are the odds 5 of them have gone off course and we don't know where they are? No, it was just a timing issue. So as a coach, that would be very cool to be able to follow along with races, the amateurs that I coach, because obviously they're not on screen or on the TV being followed around. It would really be useful in that regard too.
Yeah, I think you touched on a good point. Like an evolution of this, and I'm not I don't know if I don't know if Little Race Ranger's got enough resources to also build this, but imagine a world where you have a virtual representation of the course, like you have, say, on Ruby, and you're able to now position every athlete in real time on the course. And so, as a spectator, instead of seeing the splits and the order of the athletes, you could actually say, I want to follow Jenna's race. And it then shows you Jenna's avatar as you ride around the course. And you're going over the top of a hill, and every time you pass someone, that person shows up as another avatar, and you overtake them, and you have more of an engaging experience. Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. And then I mentioned Ruby, but you extend that to actually using Ruby at home on the bike. So you could, I can't make it to Ottawa. I'm in Christchurch, New Zealand, but I want to race and see how I do in my age group. And so you could take all the data. You could log in, maybe buy a pass for that race. Log in and take all the data from the athletes actually on the course is being fed into the platform, and you can race as if you're there, but you're actually on the other side of the world. And that could be something you do live, or it could be something you do later as a replay. And I think that's things that could probably head that way at some point soon. And anything's possible, right? But I think elevating the whole experience of watching a race and what we can now do after the race to keep people more engaged is only going to be great for the sport. So
that is very cool. Now, outside of obviously Challenge Roth has said they're going to continue to release the data from Race Ranger, have you had any of those conversations with the other kind of race organizers if that's something that they're looking to do?
just loosely, I think it's up to them to decide what they're going to do, and they'll let me know, I guess. But I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen this weekend for T100. But yeah, if they want to exclude, I'm happy to do that. I mean, it's always, there's two sides to it, I guess, in the decision. One side is it's great to release it and tell everyone it's going to be released, because it adds that another level of accountability that they're going to be careful about. It's not just something that the organizer gets this file afterwards and goes, oh damn, we should have got that person. We'll make sure we watch them closer next time, but or have a chat to them. The other side to it is, if we don't share that data and those events and referees and officials do keep it sort of more in-house, it could be something they do use in future to build up a profile for people and sort of do target the ones who are known from the data to have pushed the rules more than others in the past. I think I'm probably now, after the whole experience in the last couple of weeks, I'm probably more in the camp of it is good to release it, because I think the education for the athletes who are doing it, of seeing it, is probably going to be better than hoping that the referees go and catch them and give them a penalty. Because right now, I probably shouldn't share exactly who it is, but people contacted me and they were like, not necessarily the highest numbers, right? People contacted me and said, how is it possible that can you explain this to me? How did I earn this much drafting illegal time? They felt like they were doing what everyone else is doing. And now this is the first time they've seen this, right? So it's eye-opening for them. And they're like, and someone, I know one athlete did actually post about this. Hey, wow, I never knew this was how I was racing. I'm going to have to change my behavior in future, kind of thing. So there's real benefit in that, I think. And I hope it doesn't work the other way, and that some athletes think, oh, now I should draft some more. But I think showing people that, okay, on the whole, it's basically looks pretty clean. And then for the few athletes that had higher numbers, that's something that they now see, and obviously probably don't want to have happen again. And will probably adjust their behavior for the next race. So I'm probably leaning that way now, but I can also see the benefit of kind of keeping it under wraps and only using it as a way to know what's going on and then targeting people.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's, like you said, from that information side, it's so huge, because a lot of times where sports get into issues with something like doping is when people start to assume that everybody is doing it. So the only way they're going to be successful is if they do it too. And it seems like that has some parallels to the drafting side of it. If they're contacting you afterwards and saying, oh, I thought I was just doing what everyone else was doing, and then they can see the actual data of, well, no, these people
Mm.
are running a much more fair race. They're just that fit on the bike kind of thing. So I think that kind of openness is really good to dissuade some of those thoughts and just have a cleaner race overall. Yeah, I think it should be necessary for the races. And it sounds like, talking to Belinda and stuff, that the numbers or the draft time significantly dropped from last year compared to this year because the athletes knew that this data was going to be released. So they started to play within the lines a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I think it was a fairly modest drop. I think 5 to 10% between the two categories.
Okay.
Every race is different, right? So there's different courses and different field densities and things. So just how it plays out might have had an effect there. But yeah, I think over time, like particularly the ones who've scored quite big times, they probably don't want to have that happen again. So, and it's not, most athletes doing this sport are pretty hardworking and honest people. So I think they won't have enjoyed that that label that they've had for last week, and I hope it really doesn't stick with them too long, and this becomes more of a normalized thing. I think I mentioned on another interview, we don't vilify people who get drafting penalties. It's not like we don't put them on the same step as a doper, so it shouldn't
Yeah.
it shouldn't stick with them too much. And I think provided they race again next year and we release the data again next year or at other events, and we see an improvement in their behaviour, then yeah, I think we should not ride them too hard.
No, absolutely. Now, before we go here, what is one thing that you're just really excited about with Race Ranger and kind of the future it has?
Yeah, well, I guess all the things I've talked about, but one thing I've sort of left out is an app, I guess, that ties it all together. That's really exciting at the moment. So we did a little announcement. Actually, it went out the day before Felix's big Roth announcement, so it got a bit lost in the news that week. But basically, with World Triathlon, we've been working on an app for triathlon officiating. So there are through this process of developing Race Ranger, the on-bike stuff, we've sort of obviously spent a lot of time at events and with officials and tried to understand how they operate, and seen a lot of room for improvement, basically just by applying some pretty simple technology. They are using radios, they are using pens and pads, and they're using a WhatsApp group where people are posting photos at dinner the night before alongside penalties and DNF information. And so we always had this idea in mind that we don't want it just to be a light system out there, and then the system will determine its own penalties. We definitely still want to involve the referee, and so how do we do that? We need some sort of internet connected application on their phone or on a tablet, as I say. And so we've gone down that track and said, okay, well, actually, even without the devices being connected to the internet, there's a need for that app to improve the way, as a core user, the officials are communicating and operating on the day. And that's how it started. You can enter an athlete number into this app, and it will tell you if they have a penalty already. If you want to then give them a penalty, it'll go straight to the penalty tent referee, and they'll have it on their screen. A notification will come up ready for the athlete to arrive. But then the extension of this was, okay, how about if we have a notification goes to the event director as well, if a DNF gets reported, or if the commentator, it'll be close thing for the commentator to know if an athlete had a penalty, and then again if that penalty had been served or not, and this kind of thing. So it's kind of grown from an officials app into a more wider reaching event management type system. And this will very soon, as I say, have this data coming from where the athletes are and the drafting data coming into it. So that's a pretty cool. I guess it's not a athlete as much of an athlete facing thing. They're not going to be connected to it themselves, but all the background stuff around running, officiating, whether it's officials standing in transition out in the run course, on motorbikes, as I'm talking about earlier here, they're all going to be connected in a centralized system, and that's all obviously logged as a timeline of the race. XYZ official gave this penalty with these notes at this time, at this location, that sort of thing. So just, I guess, professionalizing the way we do things at races, and that's really exciting at the moment. So we've tested that at 3 races now with World Triathlon through some early beta testing. As it uses the Alghero World Series, Tisvaros World Cup, and then the Hamburg World Series event. Hamburg, they actually used it for the whole event, so including I think one day there were 4,000 age groupers competing on a single day alongside the teams races of the elites. And yeah, we've got a lot of great feedback. Obviously, it's these kind of things you always want to put it in the hands of the users and hear what they like and don't like, and make some buttons bigger and some text clearer, that sort of thing. But As I say, we're going to have some first testing of that next month with people on motorbikes actually using the tablets. So that's going to be exciting as well. And that's a pretty key part to tying it all together and making it a lot more usable. So that's coming as well. But it will be something that they'll be able to use at events where we don't have the devices on the bikes as well. It'll just be a cool communication and event management tool that they can use at any race, really. So.
No, that's fascinating. You know what? That's very cool to see, especially we've seen this resurgence in triathlon participation, and now there's a lot more money in the sport for professional athletes with these different avenues. So that piece of it, the back end, the referees, to see that that is becoming more professional or has the potential there is definitely exciting for the direction of the sport, because that's what we want to see. We want to see a sport that to the outside public, to the outside viewer who's just looking into it, looks professional, looks polished, and is exciting to watch. And it sounds like you're creating a number of tools that will help that come to fruition as the sport continues to grow.
Yeah, giving it a good crack. So
perfect.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time here. We sure appreciate it. There's been lots of chat about Race Ranger, and it's been great to learn a little bit more about the direction, and exciting to see what the potential of it is coming up.
Thanks, Jenna. Hey, thanks for your support and always talking about us. It's always nice to hear a little mention every now and then, and brightens up the day. So thank you.
Well, we're absolutely geeks for the sport, so we are definitely into it more than most, but we're looking forward to hearing about the next steps. And we will see it on course at T100 London this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot.
Have a great one.
Cheers.